Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of The Warm Intro. All right, so today we have a very special guest. We have Claire McHugh, CEO of Axonista. And rather than me doing an introduction, I thought that could be my first question. So please help me in welcoming Claire McHugh to the stage. Hello, how are you?
Very good.
How are things? Everything good?
Yes, it's a lovely dark rainy evening in Dublin, but apart from that,
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Exactly. I mean, it's just another day. One of the things that I wanted to start off with is for the people who may not know your story from before or may not have known you from before, maybe tell us a little bit about your story in a nutshell to start.
My story in a nutshell.
Yes.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to know what Axonista does first and what the company is, just to give it a bit of framing?
Yes, I want to start where you want to start, but definitely there, yeah.
Right, because my story is I'm old, so it goes back a long way. But I guess, the best way to describe it, so just to give you a general introduction, you're in a similar industry to me, so we probably have a lot of good understanding of the industry. But for those who don't, it's a technology company based in Dublin. We have 30 people here, and we have various people around the world as well. And what we have is a product that allows big enterprise companies, so big media companies, to really embrace storytelling in a digital world, I guess is the best way to say it. So that's from doing all sorts of things about getting them onto new devices, getting them out of the living room and into things like Fire TV and Apple TV for a start, but also allowing them to have these touch points with their customers while they're there. So interactivity with the audience, so that they can do call to actions and the audience can complete the call to actions within the video. So that
you're not just watching the video passively, but rather you're being part of the experience as you watch it.
Yeah, and that has all sorts of benefits for media companies who don't really know their digital audience that well, so they can get to understand who those people are. They can kind of learn a bit more about them by asking them questions, gathering data on them, or just painting that picture of that digital viewer. It also allows them to, video is a very powerful thing. So if you are emotionally connected to the story and there's a call to action to do something about that, you're more likely to complete it in the time frame that it's in front of you. You're going to forget it 5 minutes later. So that is very powerful, being able to connect to people that way.
Yeah.
So that you
in the moment. Yeah.
In the moment when it's important and on your mind.
Yeah.
Rather than 3 seconds later. But the amount of distractions that you have today from different things are so big.
Yeah.
That you're really competing for attention.
Yeah.
And if you can do something with that attention when you have it, then that's an exchange of value in some way there.
Yeah, you know what? There's actually something that I was telling a friend about the other day, which is that we actually we owe goldfish an apology, because a lot of people say, oh yeah, these days people have the memory of a goldfish. Did you know that goldfish actually have a memory of 9 seconds, whereas humans have a memory span of 8 seconds? And it has been, this is research done by Microsoft, and people can look it up, but it just goes to show that, you're absolutely right. I mean, attention spans aren't getting any longer, and it's how people adapt to that and how businesses adapt to that as well.
Yeah, but that's the most depressing news I've heard about. 8 seconds?
Yeah.
Of course it's Microsoft. Microsoft would do some kind of survey like that.
So, if I'm not mistaken, in the year 2000, it was around 12 seconds, and it's been declining ever since. Yeah, so it's interesting. I'll send you that article later on. But I want to, for people tuning in as well, I guess, I wanted to know how the idea for Axonista came about before we jump into it further.
So I worked at a company called Setanta Media and Setanta Sports for a very long time before I worked at Axonista. And that was my first sort of foray into the broadcasting industry. And I was lucky enough to be employee number 4 or 5 when Setanta Sports took off as a TV channel here.
Wow.
Which was incredible, because that was a massive opportunity for me to get involved in everything I put my hand up for. There was yes, you can do that.
Yeah.
Because we don't have anyone else to do that.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, so I really got to understand how first of all, how a startup worked. It was in the media industry, it wasn't a tech startup, but I had previously worked in tech companies, so I had some of that experience. And they were operational roles. So I learned how companies worked from being in very like junior operational roles, which I think is a fantastic way to learn about any company. And that was through sales, but also through other operationals.
Account management.
Not so much account management, but more like how to run the company.
Right, okay.
So you're looking at not so much human resources, but the things that you need to put in place to for a company to go and run, itself. So I had like a good view of that, and then coming to Setanta, it was like, okay, there's a media company. How does that work? So it's like, it needs an ad department, it needs a sales department. We didn't have any of these departments at the time, but we did have some very, very knowledgeable people who joined from Work to Eat to set it up.
And was it exciting to actually see it being built before your eyes, almost like the building pieces are slowly coming together?
Yeah, it was super exciting, and it was a really good energy, and new people would pop up every week and be, oh, you're new, what do you do?
Yeah.
And the thing would just take off and grow and grow and grow. And that was an incredible seat to be in, to just kind of see how you build a company, because that was something I hadn't really seen before.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about the industry, and I learned a lot about an industry that was undergoing huge change, or was about to undergo huge change.
Yeah. Would you say that in a way, it's in a way better than, say, joining, I'm generalizing like crazy right now, but like better than joining a large company in the sense that, you at least get to see, or joining something early enough that you actually get to see how it's being built out, versus going to something that's quote unquote established, too big to fail, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there was so much freedom in what we could do and try.
Right, yeah.
And someone would have sold something, and then we're like, okay, how do we fulfill that thing? Or how do we make ads?
Yeah, we need to do what?
Yeah. There was just so much stuff, and everyone really just rolled up their sleeves and got in with it. No matter how senior they were, it was an incredibly open and helpful, friendly environment, and I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
And then they grew, and they took on Sky in the UK, and they bought Premier League Sports and all sorts of things, and that was kind of crazy to see it escalate to that stage.
And in the midst of all that, how did you? Where did the epiphany, if I can call it that, come?
So my job was, I had lots of different jobs in Setanta as it evolved, but the last role that I had there was program manager, which is different type of programming. So it's about, and if you go back to the world of TV that I was in at the time, which was, we were a broadcast channel. We had live events, there were sports events. We knew people would watch us for the live stuff. We needed to keep the audience, so that they would continue watching us after the live stuff. And then we had to, provide something that was an interesting experience that they wouldn't switch off.
Right. So to keep them engaged, obviously.
Keep them engaged. But so you had to come up with, well, what's the flow of this viewer? Who's at home? Who's watching at this time? Where are they? Who are they with? All of the different things that you need to think about your audience. So it was very much, how do I build a thing that people will stick around for? And that was, my job was to make that. It's
almost started with that question, if you will. Yeah.
And what I think has been the thing that's evolved as digital has exploded, and in a sense digital has reinvented a bunch of industries, and TV is now being reinvented by digital. But when it exploded, it's like you can just put video out there, but creating experience that asks people to watch, finds out what they want, shows them what to watch next. Like Netflix is pumping a lot of money into that in terms of their discovery. That's hard. So, and that's the type of skill set that humans have, that you still need to be able to do to tell a story in the modern age.
Yeah.
You have to also be good at storytelling, but you have to be good at thinking about all the elements of the story, and that's in the user interface, that's in the technology itself, that's in the experience. It's so much richer than just here's a screen and somebody is linking you from one program to the next.
And I think even just thinking of it in terms of all the different touch points that are available, it just presents a brand new blank canvas for a lot of brands to really innovate and really do what they should be doing in the modern age with the modern viewer, if you will.
Yeah.
And so in terms of, you were obviously first-time CEO starting Axonista.
Yeah, so just to round off that story, because I kind of
go ahead.
Went into what I did in Setanta without sort of telling you the answer
go
to
ahead,
the question, which is more about like what was the time that we thought that would be a good thing to start Axonista. So the company that I was working with, it had settled into a nice rhythm. And there wasn't really anything new for me to do. Streaming was just starting. It was just starting. And
this was the year?
2010.
2010, okay.
Yeah, so streaming was really just starting to be a thing. There were websites with stuff on it. That was a bit, kind of it, right? It's Netflix was probably still sending out DVDs. But
with no late fees, that was their competitive advantage.
Was that it? Actually, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that I mean,
against Blockbuster.
That exactly, yeah, and that's how. But I was going to say that's how Blockbuster, died. But that was the start of it anyway.
In the States.
All right. Okay. Cool. I'll have to find that.
I'll send you the article if you send me the goldfish one.
Yeah, go for it.
So, the thing that made it for me was like, okay, devices are coming out now, personal devices that you can watch the video on, and I was like, that's going to change everything, and it was right. It did change everything. Yeah. But I thought it would change everything immediately. It didn't happen. It was a little bit later than that.
Yeah.
So and it was actually myself and my co-founder Dara. We were in the Ferryman pub, which is not too far from here, and he was showing me Family Guy on a phone, and it might have been a Nokia phone or something, but I was like, holy shit, this is watchable. This is actually, I could watch this.
And we're here in the pub. We're not like on watching TV.
We're here in a pub. We're not in our living room. And this is kind of wow. So that was kind of the moment where we were like, yeah, we have to do something. We have to do something with video, with apps, like the whole thing. No one knew what was happening. So immediately it was very easy for us to sort of get customers from big companies who were just had R&D budgets to do stuff, but also had mission critical things to run and couldn't really do the R&D themselves.
Sure.
To figure out what their content looked like in this new world. And that's really where we started. So we started with customers pretty much straight away. Right.
And it's because they didn't have the capacity, some would call it, they don't have the luxury even to like think of what's possible because they're just underwater with all the things that are currently on their plate. Yeah. That's an amazing opportunity.
It is.
Well, obviously in hindsight, yeah.
It is, and we learned so much from that. And then we learned that, people are looking for the same thing. Maybe we can build a product out of this and serve these needs that seem to be common across all of these companies.
Did you start with, if I can call it R&D and consulting?
No, we just tapped into the R&D budgets that were available.
Right.
We had some friends who were working in companies. I think we were working with MTV in the States. It was one of the first companies. They were like, what does music video look like in this new landscape?
Yeah.
So we did a bunch of work with them, and it was services work. We started as a service.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So, and then we figured out, we can make a product. And that was something that Dara always wanted to do. He wanted to make a product. He'd come from services companies before, and he'd founded 2 of them previously, grown them quite big, built teams, built engineering teams, all of the stuff that I didn't know how to do, he knew how to do, which is great. And I knew the industry. That he knew a bit, but we between us we had the right mix. Yeah,
it was the right mix of complementing skills at the end of the day. Yeah. Right. And in terms of so in terms of you being a first-time CEO, what was that like? And was that?
Agreed what I was doing.
Was that the plan? Like, how did you go about starting it off?
This is the thing. You're 2 founders. One of you is obviously the tech founder, so there's CTO, right?
Yeah, leaves me.
That leaves me with this position of CEO, right? And I didn't know any other O's at the time. I was like, okay, I'll do that. But
you didn't know any. Did you go through all the O's and you're like, you know what?
I stopped there.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny because in large companies there's training programs. They spot talent. They're like, this person is a future CEO, and they bring them through the ranks. And they probably are a CFO at some point, and they probably, and they're doing lots and lots of training on themselves, on leadership, in order to be a better CEO when they do get to that point. We're founders of startup companies, that with the explosion of startup companies that there have been in the last 10 years, you don't get a manual or anything like that. So when I was becoming a founder and a CEO for the first time, there wasn't as much meetups, there wasn't as much online about it, there wasn't the resources that there are today.
Yeah.
And certainly not the
all the books and blogs and thought leaders and all that.
I certainly didn't know where they were,
Yeah.
And the ecosystem wasn't the same. There wasn't the community that there is today.
Yeah.
And certainly I knew some people who'd started companies, So I talked to them.
Yeah.
And I still talk to them.
Yeah.
But that was it. It was like, well, okay, what do we do now?
And what were some of the challenges that you were like, listen, like these are like real challenges that we really need to find a way to overcome at the very start?
At the very start, we didn't know what we were doing. Like, so we didn't have huge challenges apart from what will we do?
Yeah.
What do we want to do? You know, we had a vague idea of the world as it would be in 10, 15 years' time in our minds. So we had the vision, and we haven't really changed that vision. And it's unfolding. It's unfolding at a slower rate than we thought, but it is unfolding in the rate that we thought it would. And you know, we hadn't built a team until like the following year. Maybe we started to build a team maybe in 2012, 2013. So like we were kind of figuring things out for quite a while in our apartment.
Yeah.
And I do not work well in my apartment. Like Dara's very good at it, he's very disciplined like that, but
Yeah.
I'm just like, I find myself every 5 seconds I'm like in the fridge, or I'm like putting on a wash, I'm like, why am I here?
I'm the same, yeah, because when we started we were in the apartment as well, and the fridge, that's a big challenge
but
there.
It was just like, I just would find myself opening the fridge and going, I don't remember walking here, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Why am I here? I don't know. I want some food. So that wasn't good for me.
I don't know how I got here, but I'm here now, so.
I needed to go outside. I was like turning into the worst version of myself, and I needed to just go outside and talk to some people, get dressed, you know, like that kind of thing. Leave the house.
It's stepping outside of the building, as they say.
So
startup lingo, yeah.
We got an office, and it was a recession at the time, so that was a great time to start a business.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you can kickstart a business in a recession, I think you can do it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's the perfect training ground, would you say? Yeah.
It is. And, you know, there's people who are looking for jobs. There's offices that are cheaper to rent. You know, there's things, the environment worked for us.
Yeah.
To start going.
I remember in college, I wanted to join the swim team. And in order to make us better swimmers so that we know how to race really good on the day, they would tie like ankle weights to our ankles when we were swimming. And each one was like 2.5 kgs on each leg.
Wow.
And the idea is that, you know, on the day you are like, you know, explosive, like you're swimming very fast. But I ended up dropping out of the swim team ultimately.
Did they take the weights off you for the day?
For the day, yeah. It just didn't make any difference for me. I was slow in both cases. So, but I do appreciate, you know, obviously building something in a time of resistance, such that when things are quote unquote, you know, better, I have this theory that there's always going to be new challenges. You know, it's not like there's one day when it's like, finally, no more obstacles, we're good to go. You know, the challenges keep evolving, but the person just becomes. Did you find that you've just developed a better appreciation of assessing everything and sort of like walk us through that maybe?
About what?
In terms of how you used to view challenges before and how you view it now in terms of the best way to approach them, to overcome them.
I have a good process of challenge, like taking on challenges, and I'm good at finding a way through something where there doesn't seem to be a way. I will find a way. Like it's a strength.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what level it's at. You know, if I want to do something, I'll figure out a way to do it. And that is really useful. So I don't know. I'll figure it out. Like there is definitely an attitude, like within me, like I know I'll figure it out. I believe I will.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of fundamental to being able to overcome challenges.
Absolutely.
If I don't care about it, I probably won't be near it.
Yeah.
If I do care about it, I'll just figure it out.
Do you find that there is it different every time, or do you have a set, say, process or way of approaching things in general?
I haven't like evaluated myself in these circumstances, because usually it's like, shit, we need to sort this out. And I'll just kind of go, okay, what can we look at? What can we move? How do we do this? Like, how do we get through? And it's a collaborative thing. I don't ever do it on my own, but we'll get there. I haven't kind of looked at how I do that, but I probably will now.
Okay. But that's really impressive. I mean, it just shows that it's something that happens pretty naturally. It's not something that you have to call upon or you know, it happens subconsciously as opposed to like, you know, I have to like do this 1, 2, 3 step process, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do it less often.
Okay, yeah.
But you know, stuff happens and you deal with it.
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
good at dealing with stuff and spotting stuff that might happen further down the road.
Right. I think that I feel that my gut feeling is that that's part of the answer right there, in the sense that being able to even anticipate what may happen and you know, being in the best shape almost.
Yeah, and I can carry a few scenarios in my head at any given time, which is good. That is it as well. It's like, okay, what happens if this happens and this happens and this happens? So what are the, you know, what are the routes through that?
And based on what happens, this is how we're going to respond, essentially. Yeah. Wow. Okay. It's so. I mean, when we talk about it, it sounds straightforward, simple, but it's actually really profound if you think about it.
Most things are like, there's no real mystery to it. I think that's the thing that it's scary. It can be scary, and people are scared of different things. But it isn't rocket science. If you don't know something, or you haven't heard of something, you can demystify it pretty quickly by searching for it on Google. There's, you know, nothing is like very, 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 very complex about running a company. It's extremely difficult to do well. And the people who do it well make it as simple as possible for themselves. And
they forget to tell us how complex it actually was.
There's just, you know, some of the simplest approaches have the most effective results.
Yeah.
For example, we have weekly management meetings on our team. We have a leadership team. We have weekly meetings, and usually on a Monday. They used to be shite. Everyone hates them. And you know, we do them, and we were kind of getting into this group. We have these meetings every week, and it was kind of like.
Was it just because it was like routine or?
Yeah, and you know, you have people who are kind of, they have their phones and their laptops, and they're not really listening, and they're not paying attention to what's going on, and you know, people are just kind of sharing stuff that's on the top of their heads, or issues that they feel are issues, and other people aren't really listening because it doesn't really involve them, and you know. Yeah. Actually, you're just kind of spending an hour going around the table, and you don't achieve anything in that meeting. So we switch them up, and what we do now is, and it's very, very simple. I just go into the meeting, and on the whiteboard I write, okay, what do we want to discuss today? What's our agenda? And I probably put something up that I want to discuss. And I'll ask other people, do they have any other things? And we'll have a list of like 5 or 6 things on the board. It'll take us about 5 minutes to get that list up there. Because I'm standing up and writing on a board, there's something about that when the rest of them are sitting down that it's like I'm teacher or something. So they do come up with.
And it's a lot more engaging as well. I mean, it's like, listen, like,
engaged.
yeah.
They're all super engaged.
Yeah.
We write down our list.
Nice.
We take the first one. We talk about the first one and we resolve it. And then we get to the next one. And we write down all the things. And then we're able to then, if we've made any decisions on things, which we typically have because they're the things that we want to discuss, we share them with the team the next day at all hands, which is on Tuesdays.
Right.
And that is incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
But it's
and yet so simple. Yeah.
You know, we're just writing things on a board.
Yeah.
Discussing them and like, you know, crossing them up. And
yeah. And I'd say as well, like probably just getting into the rhythm of that and the consistency of it as well.
Yeah.
The outcome of that obviously compounds, and it has a positive ripple effect on the rest of the organization, I'd say.
Everyone enjoys that meeting.
Yeah.
Like everyone, because that was a good meeting, you know, and you hear that was a good meeting.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yay! I'm doing it right.
And what are because I know that you're very passionate about this topic. When it comes to people who are in a leadership position and they never necessarily had the chance to do that before, but now they're really learning on the job, and them being a leader is like I love this idea of people not waiting to get picked by like a manager, an employer, whatever, but to pick themselves. I'm paraphrasing from James Altucher, but the idea there is, for people who do take that leap, and it's like, right, I'm gonna do this, and then step 2 or step B almost is the hardest thing. So how have you, like, how do you approach that, and what have you learned?
What I see and what I'm interested in our team is growing leaders within the team, and there are some of them that step up consistently, and they put their hand up for things, but when I see it from them sort of taking on a challenge, and I see how the proposal to us sort of works, I can see it all happening. They don't know I can see it all happening, but I can. And it's kind of like they circulate the idea, they get buy-in, they have a plan, and they come up with a plan. And it's like by the time they've actually presented the plan, we've all heard about it anyway, and everyone's on board. You know, because it's tweaked and everyone's happy with it.
Yeah.
And I think if you can do that really well, that is the way to, you know, grow and become a leader. So I love when I see that happening within our organization.
And just to confirm, is it by that you mean the process of building buy-in with multiple stakeholders within the company?
Yeah.
Okay. And what are some of your favorite examples of that in terms of people who've done it really well?
There are people on my team that I don't want to say because they'll be really super embarrassed and then they know I'm onto them. But I just love seeing that. You know, it's like, oh, I can see what you're doing. That's great.
Right.
You know, wait, and you know, I'll see what happens. But like by the time we discuss it as a group, we're all kind of on board with it anyway, and it's like a thing that we do. We recently did that. We changed some part of how the organization works, and we're in the second week of it now.
Okay.
And it was done really, really well.
Yeah.
By a few people in our team.
Right. And in terms of, you know, some of the things that, have you ever come across cases where you felt the team, maybe not you specifically, but someone in the team had certain challenges and, you know, it was preventing them from being, you know, fulfilling like their potential in what they're currently doing?
Every single person does, right?
Okay.
So the trick is to figure out how to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is you can't see that. So like, because you're not looking at yourself all the time, you don't see how you act, how you behave, what you say. You don't hear, like, you know, you are not looking at you.
Yeah.
Everyone else can see it.
Yeah.
But you can't. So I did a course with Enterprise Ireland recently and EAZ Business School, and it's called Leadership for Growth. They do it every year with 30 Irish CEOs. I was on the 2019 batch.
Wow.
And it's phenomenal. It's a really super leadership course. And one of the things they put us through was this 360 review, which is horrible. If anyone's ever done it, it's not like... 360
is when, you know, you give a review to each other, right?
Well, it was just on
I'm oversimplifying it.
So it was like... we had coaches for this course as well, which I think coaching is a wonderful thing. And it was a gift. But, you know, you have your peers talking to the coach about you, and then the coach would take those results of those interviews and then present them back to you. And then you had to present them back to your team and then tell them how you were going to change.
Right. Interesting.
So you had to kind of get to grips with all of the things that people thought about you that you didn't know yourself. Now, I was okay in terms of like my self-awareness wasn't like super, like what I thought of myself wasn't actually too far away from what they thought. But the only way that you can find out that stuff is really to do something like a 360 or do something where you're uncovering the side of yourself that you've maybe repressed over you're not aware that you're doing. So to increase your own self-awareness is the only way to get out of your own way. Yeah. And once you do, you find that actually that's quite a powerful thing to be able to use. This is what I continually do. This is a pattern. You spot patterns of how you're getting in your way. Look at them and figure out why you're doing it. Yeah. And how you can change that behavior. Yeah. Especially if you catch yourself. This happens to me all the time where it's like, I catch myself doing something. I'm like, oh, you're doing that thing again. Yes. That thing you said you're going to get better at. Yeah. But that's the first part of it. Catching yourself doing it is the first part of it. Okay. Then examining why you're doing it. And then like really getting in touch with that. That's the second part. Okay, interesting. And then the third part is just actually making the change so that you don't do that. Catching yourself again. And I find like for me, meditation is a big part of just paying attention. You know, go back to that goldfish. Yeah, but just training that muscle, if you will. Training the muscle of being able to notice things in the moment, and notice things in the moment where there's conflict, and notice things that you are doing, getting in your own way. Was there, and I hope you don't mind me asking, was there a specific example of something like that used to be the case, and after going through this exercise, you've kind of changed your approach around it? I mean, look, there's tons of stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone has tons of stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like,
definitely.
I'm not unique in this, and I don't think there's like one person that would be, be themselves wholly all the time. I think it's very, very difficult. It's a lifetime work. It's something that you work on continually over your life. Even people who've been doing it for years and years and are brilliant will tell you that they're still working on it.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you just fix,
Yeah, of course.
But it helps understand you and helps unblock you. And
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. So for me, the thing is that some of the things that you get yourself in your own way are also your biggest strengths.
How come?
Because there's two sides to them.
Okay.
So, for me, like, I probably worry and care too much about what other people think in general. I really do care about being a decent human being, but I go to the extreme on it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, other people probably don't care.
Go to the extreme in terms of showing that.
Yes.
Understood. Okay.
And I can reel that back. I should reel that in a bit,
Mm-hmm.
And that's about saying no more often. And then like, oh, I said no, nothing bad happened.
I'm still here. Yeah.
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 But on the flip side of that, because I do care deeply about other people,
Yeah.
that actually makes me a good leader too.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I see your point. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I know when to get out of my own way.
Yeah.
And when to lean into it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there's a book that I've recently finished called, it's by Ryan Holiday.
Oh yeah, I
book
haven't read it, but I know of him.
Well, he wrote many books. Can you get?
Which one is it?
It's called The Obstacle is the Way. I don't know if you've come across it, but you may already like it just from the title. But the idea behind it is, how can you take something that's quote unquote, an obstacle, and actually not just succeed despite the obstacle, but succeed thanks to the obstacle. And you would have actually been worse off if this obstacle was not there. Mm-hmm. But thanks to the obstacle, you're so much better now. Which is, I was like, what the? I just wanted to understand what that is, and it's exactly what you're talking about, which is, how could you use the momentum of that thing towards, almost like against itself. So like, for example, I'm personally I'm a very something I'm trying to get better at, but I find myself being a very impatient person. Mm-hmm. But maybe when and there's a lot of like cons to that. But I guess some pros of that, maybe when I'm just with me by myself, is that I push myself to try my best not to procrastinate and to get things done fast. And it's like, okay, you say you're impatient, well, how come this one thing is still not done yet?
That's great. And I think it's kind of like, you have to create the environment for yourself to excel in. Yeah. And understand that environment is different for other people. Yeah. Depending on the person. And then you have to spot, as a leader, you have to spot what's the environment that this person excels in and try and create that for them. Yeah,
that's an insane concept. I mean, it's like, okay, like, if, for example, if you and I have like a specific environment, it doesn't it doesn't mean that other people are in that same environment. They may see their environment or the world completely differently.
Perception is completely different.
Yeah. And how do you go about finding that?
Ask them.
Okay. Take a note of that. Hey, what's your? Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean,
observe them as well. Like, that's the thing is, like, when you are in a leadership role, you do observe people in a way that they're not able to observe themselves. So if you can pass on some wisdom from that to them to help them grow and learn, then that's what you should.
I love that. I mean, have you ever come across cases where it was the opposite effect? I mean, it was the same effect in the sense that they're like, oh, thanks, because I'm inside myself, I didn't even realize that I'm doing that. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, genuinely, that would be the response.
Yeah.
You get like, I never knew I did that. And
wow.
I'd be the same, I'd be like, oh, I do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I notice myself doing that now.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, we're going to open it up to questions in just a minute. So I'm going to end with my final question, which is, what is the one piece of what is one of the biggest learnings or mantras that you live by day that you think has had a positive effect on you that others may benefit from?
Stop creating problems where there aren't any is a good one.
Okay.
But I think, just like if you've one life, if you want to do something, try and do it, and you owe it to yourself. I think that's a key thing.
Yeah.
And you know, if you can, the impact that you can have on other people's lives, you can make a positive impact. You should try and make a positive impact, and that's like, for me, turning up to work every day. That is a part of what I want to achieve in the day. I want to, you know, create a positive space for people to grow, and I want to have positive experiences with them, and I want to listen to them.
Yeah.
You know, that is for me an enjoyable day. You know, and whether that be customers or team members or, you know, anyone that I come across during the day, I think it's that is really a good day.
Yeah, yeah. And to create, I suppose, the environment that enables all that for them as well.
Yeah, and some of the things would be to create, you know, as a female leader in a tech industry, it's an uncommon enough thing to be. So to take that torch and sort of light the way for the people is a responsibility that I've decided to champion myself. So
I love
like,
that.
That's it, and it's a thing that I can make a real impact without having to do a hell of a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I turn up to a couple of things and be visible and
Yeah.
approachable and answer questions and help people, and that's it. But on the flip side of that, I need to like limit the time that I do that too. You know, so because the prioritization is where I fall down.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
How do I prioritize this and prioritize myself as well? So, you know, that's, I guess that is it really.
And I do see you a lot online, and you are an amazing ambassador for all the values that you've been talking about today. So,
thank you.
So I just want to let you know, in case you know, again, like from an external perspective, that yeah, we definitely do see that. So definitely keep it up for sure. Okay, we're gonna open it up to questions. Who would like to ask the first question? All right, Stephen.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for all the incredible insights.
Would you like to just say your name and company to start?
Yeah. Hey guys, my name is Stephen Kenvey. I'm the co-founder of Actifone.com. Yeah, delighted to have you here today, and delighted to be here to see the show. But my question is, how do you find managing your own work and managing people during growth?
Yeah. That's a good question, and it is very difficult. You just kind of have to block out all your time, and every now and again just write a big list with everything that's top of your mind, you know, and just and prioritizing things that are, and this is something I learned from coaches as well, prioritizing things that are urgent, important, before they become urgent, because you generally take on the urgent stuff.
Yeah.
But if you take on the important stuff, it never really gets to the urgent stage. So like that's the stuff, and then deprioritize anything that isn't either of those things.
At this stage, do you still do a lot of work yourself, or would you delegate most of and manage?
It depends. Like certain parts of the business, I've been able to kind of completely go and have faith in the people who are running those parts.
Yeah.
And then there's parts that we're still growing, and I'm still doing probably more than I should. And my role is to try and get myself out of all of the things that I shouldn't be doing, and just focus on the stuff that I should. So that's like, as a CEO, your job is to kind of go and find people to replace you doing all the things that you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really hard, because you get very precious about the stuff that you're doing at the start, because it's all your stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have to hand over, and then that person does it in a different way.
Oh my God! Don't get me started. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, oh no, and I just. Should I give them some advice on how to do it? Oh, I'll just do it myself. It's quicker, you know. And that's,
oh my God!
and
Yeah.
It's a trap that
That's story of many people's lives. And actually, if you don't mind me asking a question on top of that, how have you managed to manage that?
I mean, again, that's one of the things that I probably haven't observed myself doing in order to give you like a proper answer.
Okay.
But the number one thing is like people, you know, finding the right person, like that's crucial, and finding the right person for the thing that you want, and a person that you can have a good, honest conversation with, and having those conversations and collaborating with them early, so that you know you don't send them off down a track of their interpretation being completely wildly from the interpretation that you set out. Like, to be honest, it's really hard, or it's amazing that humans are able to actually communicate effectively at all, given like all of the stuff.
Given the fact we're not robots, yeah.
But like I'm sending a
Oh, no.
message to you, there's like the tone of my voice, there's how I'm saying it, there's who I am. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes along with that, and then you interpret that differently, and then you get some of the information from that. So like how people actually effectively delegate is just to keep ensuring that you've actually both on the same page as to what you originally wanted.
Thank you. That answers
You're
my
welcome.
question.
That's a good question.
Any other questions?
I've got a question. So thank you again for coming. So I'm Kareem's co-founder. And my question is, it seems like people tend to be nostalgic and they almost feel like had they started things sooner, they would have gotten a lot luckier. So they would have been like, for example, someone starting a company in the same space that you're in, for example, now would be a little more reluctant, seeing as there's a lot more going on, there's a lot more competition, the standard's a lot higher. They might be looking back and saying, oh, had I started sooner, I would have been better off now. And I was wondering, in your experience, how true do you think that is? And overall, do you think it was actually easier to start back then? And, if so, what advice would you have for coping with?
It's a good question. Timing is really important. Like, you can't be too late. But you might, if you really want to do something, go ahead and do it. But like, find a thing that the timing is right for is probably to give yourself an easier time. Because if you're competing where there's in the market that is has already got a market leader in it, or a couple of market leaders that people have done. Their homework, that they've been advertising themselves for years and they get to know they've built that network. That's difficult. It's more difficult than if you're going into something that's slightly new that there's no market leaders in. But then again, that's difficult for other things because then you have to figure out what your positioning is and how you describe yourself, and that's hard. That's super hard. Especially when there's nothing to compare you to in the market. People are like, I have no idea what you do, and you told them like 10 times already. And there's like, still have no idea what you do. It's like, you could pull your hair out. So there's flip sides to both of those things, but I wouldn't ever go, I'm too late, to do a thing. Just try and pick a good thing with customers in the market and, the things that businesses need to actually operate to get the fundamentals of it right.
Yeah, better late than never. Another sort of follow-up that I had to that was sort of related to your experience with growing your company. Usually, like when you start off, you're doing everything yourself.
Yes.
And then slowly you find ways to do things more efficiently. And then eventually you find ways to get people to do stuff on your behalf, delegating things.
Yes.
I was wondering, what would you say was the most difficult thing about communicating things that you sort of took a lot of ownership of day to day and delegating that onto someone else? Because, a lot of people, including myself, I'm very guilty of this. I'm sort of a control freak. I'm never satisfied unless I do something myself completely. And, as things grow and scale, you can't really keep doing everything yourself. So I just wanted to hear from yourself, what would you say was the most difficult thing that you have to overcome?
Getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
But also communication and communicating effectively. The amount of times you actually have to say something for somebody to understand what you said is more than you think. We have a
That's really
50%
interesting,
distributed team as well, so we also have Zoom calls and Skype things and people can't hear, and there's a whole ton of stuff that impedes communication that goes along with that. Now there's a ton of stuff that makes it really easy to work together in different countries, which is fabulous. But you have to just take into account that you need to say something over and over and over again for it to actually resonate and for people to remember it and go, oh yeah. So that would be the assumption that once you say something, it's understood and you've said it well is the biggest sort of bad assumption to make.
I love that so much because you think like, listen, I did a great job of explaining like the steps or what needs to be done. But again, that's you in your own environment. You think you gave yourself 10 out of 10, but you need to check for understanding.
And actually it was somebody from, I think it was the head of engineering from, where was she from? It was GitHub, actually. It was recently in in Dublin, and she was saying the way she does it, because she has a completely distributed team, is that if she is sending something out that's like a thing that she wants communicated, she does it in different forms. So she'll write a little blog post about it for people, she'll record a video about it, she'll do it in a couple of different media, because she knows that people take in information in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's really clever, you know. I think that's a good approach for that.
Yeah, perfect. Claire, we could be here all day and night, so we're conscious of your time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Very welcome.
Thank you to everyone that was here for the live filming, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Warm Intro.